Welcome to today's webinar on moving past the Great Resignation, employer strategies for the new normal. I'm Stephen Aquario. I'm the Executive Director of your New York State Association of Counties. And I want to thank you for taking the time, especially on a late day Friday on such a nice afternoon, taking time from your busy schedule to participate in today's webinar on employer strategies. The Great Resignation or reset or reevaluation has upended the labor market with a force that we've not seen in some time. And at the recent NISAC conference, we discussed this issue in a closing plenary. During that conference, I also had an opportunity to speak with many county officials, elected officials, supervisors, legislators, county executives, controllers, and treasurers, and county administrators and department heads, and talk about this issue. Research is now showing that county government is not immune to these impacts. And in certain areas, the experience that we're seeing in the public sector is a more drastic change than in the private sector. This presentation today will address factors that influence employment trends in local government, what counties can do to attract and retain employees in this ultra competitive environment. But before we begin today, I want to sincerely thank our sponsor, PERMA, for their generosity in sponsoring today's program. PERMA stands for the Public Employer Risk Management Association, which provides municipal employers, including counties, across New York State with the best possible workers' compensation coverage and risk management services for the most reasonable cost. For more information, visit www.perma.org. And I just want to show a quick 60-second video from PERMA. Jeanette, can we show that video?
Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jack Wheeler, and I serve as Steuben County Manager and also Board Chair and President of PERMA. PERMA is the trusted source to more than 600 municipal entities across New York State, not just for workers' compensation coverage, but also for proactive and comprehensive workplace solutions. We're proud to sponsor today's webinar. Since 2011, NISAC and PERMA have been close partners. We work together to promote initiatives and address issues that impact our county members. As a PERMA member, you receive so much more than just cost-effective workers' compensation coverage. As county manager, I know and recognize PERMA as a provider who understands the constraints involved in operating a municipality in these challenging environments. We share the same goal of containing costs, but also promoting workplace safety. Our priorities at PERMA are to proactively address workplace risks, protect worker safety, and take a personalized approach in providing resources and training for municipalities. PERMA solely provides service to public sector entities in New York State. And as a longtime member, I can say their service is truly amazing. Please take a moment to visit perma.org to learn more about some of the great opportunities to partner with PERMA. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or email solutions@perma.org. Thank you.
The Steuben County Administrator, Steuben County Manager, and the President and CEO of PERMA. I also serve on the Board of Directors for PERMA, and am very proud of the workers' compensation programs and incredible risk management services offered by PERMA. But today, we want to feature Ian Coyle. Ian is a very fine public servant. He is also my go-to when I am in need of locating individuals for certain department head jobs, county administrators, or a department head job. Ian is a real go-to for me. He is my first call. He helps me find individuals for public sector services, and not just in New York, but around the United States. And I'm very grateful to him for helping me with his employment placement services. That, again, he is just an amazing individual and knows just so many people and so many circles. He's a true expert. Of course, Ian Coyle is the county administrator right here in Livingston County, New York. He's been in this position for about since 2008. Prior to county government, he was a village manager. He's got a bachelor's in political science from St. Bonnie and an MPA, a master's in public administration and local government management from the University at Albany. He is an ABD in the Doctorate of Public Administration program at Valdosta State University. He teaches leadership, ethics, management, finance courses for a multitude of MPA programs all across the nation, including Northern Illinois University, Tulane, University of Virginia. Again, Ian also consults with me at NYSAC with local governments all around New York State in the areas of executive search, talent acquisition, teaching and training, and leadership coaching through his firm, Academic Partners. Ian serves on many boards, including the National Association of County Administrators, the New York State City County Management Association, the Finger Lakes Area Counseling and Recovery Agency, and NACO's Workforce Network Advisory Council. Ian also serves on and assists NYSAC in many of its standing committees and teaching opportunities. It is my pleasure and great honor to introduce to all of you Mr. Ian Coyle. Ian.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that introduction. Jeanette, I'm going to attempt to place my presentation up, so let me know if you can see it on your end. Does that look okay?
What I see, Ian, this is Steve, not Jeanette. I see, is it a great resignation with a question mark?
All right, so first things first is I need to say, hey, Jeanette, if you can control, that would be fine because something's going on my end, but I can start right here if that's okay. Perfect. Thank you. So we'll begin with a discussion on the topic, the Great Resignation. It's probably an overused term, so I'm not going to dwell too much on it, but certainly it is something that we're all experiencing in county government. You could be experiencing this if you ran a McDonald's, if you were going through this with a construction company, and certainly local governments as major employers are experiencing this as well. So various terminologies have been used to characterize what we're going through: the great upgrade, the great questioning, the great reset, the great reprioritization. I had to laugh because Forbes referred to it as no matter what it is, it's always great, but we know it's really not that great. And we're going to talk about some strategies and opportunities to combat some of the stuff that we're experiencing. Next slide, please. So here's some stats, and they're really some sobering stats. The March news drop made a lot of news, no pun intended, for the fact that the largest numbers ever in these two categories were recorded in the nation's history. 4.5 million Americans quit their jobs in the March reports, and 11.5 million posted openings by employers in March. And you can see it's not too far behind in the latest data sets that are available from August and October in those same categories. But again, the highest levels ever recorded. Also in the summer, there was reports that private sector jobs have rebounded, but the public sector is still 3 to 5% below peak. And what does that mean? That means an impact of hundreds of thousands of jobs and job openings. Next slide, please. So again, another stat that the share of unemployed Americans, what they call job leavers, rose to almost 16% in September. And again, this is just one of those sobering statistics that is some of the first time since, well, this is the first time since 1990, the greatest level in this category since 1990. And what this, I guess, reinforces is that this Great Resignation is still, we're still in the throes of it. And I think you probably know that from your job openings or your retention rates or your recruitment efforts, that certainly we're still in the throes of what is really a multi-year cycle of a Great Resignation. So why is this an issue for local government? And Jeanette, you could probably just hit a few of these at a time, and that's okay. So why is this an issue for local government and county government? Well, one is that the entry-level employee of yesteryear who had that $15 an hour, $13 an hour, $17 an hour kind of options in front of them, they have more options than in years past. There's a lot more growth at the bottom there. It's forcing wages up, but it's also an additional opportunities for those individuals when they might have had only a couple of different options and alternatives. They have more, and they're probably a little bit more paying a little bit more than they used to. Innovation is an issue for local government. When I say innovation, I mean that at times nationally, stereotypically, government's not necessarily known as being an innovative and a creative force, so that presents as an issue with respect to recruitment and retention. We're also large employers, so you're no doubt going to be faced with issues associated with keeping your people and finding people, because you have probably in your county, you're one of the larger employers in the county. We employ 1,200 people full and part-time in Livingston County government. And so we're always having conversations with HR around, what's going on with our recruitment and retention. We're also in local government faced with bureaucracy and red tape, civil service, union regulations, policy restrictions, things that everyone else who is also dealing with the same issue, I guess, globally, doesn't necessarily have that nuance to deal with that we do in local government. Culture, I think, is an issue for local government. This is more of an opportunity than a real negative. It's really an opportunity, and I'll talk about this multiple times, so I won't dwell too much on it right now. Pay is an issue in local government. So how competitive is the pay? Has it been lacking? Has it fallen behind? If there's a more nimble approach that a private sector can take with respect to their offerings and their rates of pay and their adjustments to pay to align with the market, are we able to do that easily? I would argue we probably don't. So that presents as another issue. The coolness factor is not something that necessarily is measured. I use the analogy with my board of supervisors that on a spectrum or scale of organizational, I guess, coolness, you have the one end of Silicon Valley and Google and couches in break rooms and ping pong tables and pool tables and everybody with their feet up and unlimited PTO, and this is the best place in the world to work with or work for. And on the other end, you might have the most regimented, militarized, bureaucratized government you could ever think of. Well, I think we in government have strayed too far to the one end and need to kind of gravitate more toward the middle. I'm not arguing that we're going to have this, widespread, remote work for everybody, unlimited PTO, couches, and ping pong tables, but I think we need to kind of maybe increase that, and it's probably an issue across the board nationally for local government. And then remote work and flexibility is an issue. We have a lot of positions that are certainly not automated or not eligible for automation, first of all, and we don't have a lot of positions that are always eligible for remote work. When you talk about, ambulance, ALS and BLS techs, when you talk about corrections officers, when you talk about caseworkers that need to be in the field, it doesn't always work with remote work, but that's therefore an issue for us. Health insurance, maybe from a cost perspective, are we as competitive as the private sector in what we ask people to pay for with health insurance? What's the offering of health insurance? And then police sentiments. I have conversations with my sheriff about this. And again, going back to the private, nonprofit, and actually even other areas of the public sector are going to have kind of these base level challenges as it relates to employment concerns, meaning recruiting and retaining employees. I think there's some police sentiments that have changed that lead to less people expressing interest, at least anecdotally from what we're experiencing with our civil service exam participation rates. Less people interested in policing as a career, and so that certainly has an impact when you talk about corrections officers, dispatchers, and road patrol employees in the sheriff's office. So the evolving wants of the public sector worker. This slide and the next slide review a McKinsey, which is a major consulting company, report that just came out a couple of weeks ago that talks about these evolving wants and needs of the surveyed 1,000+ people in the public sector. Flexibility and remote work, of course, is a top want. but also a healthy work environment, a focus on mental health and wellness, flexibility and recognition and respect, all of which we're going to talk about at the end of my presentation when we talk about opportunities that we all have and a set of strategies that we can employ. So I was going to queue up Steve and I were going to karaoke this one with the Clash, Should I Stay or Should I Go? But we decided we didn't have enough reps in to be able to really get that off well. But again, this came from the report, and it's really that, why do people stay and why do people leave? And this was a survey of public sector employees. I've actually done some personal research around this for county administrators and county managers. And the organization, set up kind of the organization itself, the community quality of life, and then compensation are the main areas of interest in terms of factors of influence for county administrators and managers as to why they stay. In this broader effort across the spectrum of all of public sector, of course, that includes other non-county public sector entities, you can see that compensation is important in both, but also some things that that stand out are the meaningfulness of work, career progression, career growth, and leadership. So the importance of leadership and the importance of career development, the importance of what I would call public service motivation or wanting to work in the public sector are all important kind of takeaways for me when I look at this. So why is this an issue in New York's counties? I think, this is more granular, but you've got tier 5 and tier 6 are definitely different than tiers 1 through 4. So you have that concern of a less benefit-rich pension plan, and that was potentially a sweetener in years past to attract more people to your sector, our sector, versus the private sector. The economy and the cost of living in New York is an issue, and this is not a political statement. I know it's the time of politics with the election looming, but it's not a political statement. It's more of a statement of fact that we do lead the nation in outward migration of people leaving. We also have a national trend of folks getting potentially starting families at a later part of their life, and also having less kids than they used to 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So you have kind of that double whammy a little bit of that as it relates to New York. So that definitely is an issue when you're talking about the pool of prospective applicants being what it is. And I mentioned already insurance costs, perhaps that doesn't always is not always an issue in your maybe county. And then certainly red tape and bureaucracy, just some things that we have to deal with, and some confines, regulations, restrictions that other places do not. So that also presents individually as an issue for New York's counties. So the question is, they will eventually come back to work, right? Well, I hope so, and we can talk about how we can maybe get them back to work. So let's talk about opportunities. Opportunities kind of bleed into strategies, which will be things that you can operationalize. Opportunities are more things to initially just contemplate and think that in your county government organization, where do you have opportunities to to start tackling endeavors in these kind of categories. So the first one is a total compensation strategy. So when was the last time you looked at your county's total compensation strategy? So number 5, of course, is pay, but also related to pay. Paid time off, what does it look like? Holidays, what do those look like? Floating holidays, what do those look like? Childcare, offerings as far as the benefits your employees have when they have a life event, like taking care of an ailing mother or father, like having a child, things like that. Think about deferred compensation. Where are you with that? Think about your health care, dental care, your wellness offerings, all of those kind of wraparounds besides and augmenting the hourly rate that you offer the employee. Think about where you are in relation to where the market is and your total compensation package. The next would be training and professional development. We probably have at your departmental levels a few of these positions. Maybe some of you have at the county-wide, county admin or executive level a focus on this, or a position or a department on this. But this is a big deal for the current generation, I guess, if you will, but also the next generation. If you talk to millennials and do research and surveys around their wants and needs, they certainly are very civic minded, which goes into number 3, and they want to kind of serve, but they also want to develop. They don't want to be static. I think there's an overwhelming feeling of complacency if they're in a position for an elongated period of time in that same position, same duties, same responsibilities. And that, I don't mean to typecast that. I think other generations, I'm sure, think that. So a focus certainly in our county these days is on training, professional development, continuing education. I think NISAC plays a major role in that. I think NACO plays a major role in that. And then other offerings, this webinar, in fact, things like this, other webinars from other professional associations, making a concerted effort in your county to make this a part of the equation for your employees and for their employment is a big, big deal. Does it cost money? Yes. Does it need emphasis? That it might not have emphasis now? Yes, absolutely. I'll go to number 3 in a second, but culture and recognition is a big deal. Establishing a culture of performance, of support, of recognition vis-a-vis employee appreciation. Pay is certainly an issue. You can't not talk about pay. You have to right size where you are versus the market. I tell a story that I was embarrassed to tell my neighbor whose son was a brand new EMT that I had an opportunity in this county because I had to text my emergency medical services director and ask her what the pay was for that position. And it was $13.75 an hour in the CSEA contract, full-time on an hourly rate. That gentleman was making much more than that. He was 25 years old. He lives in the county. He would be a great person to work for us long-term and short-term, but he won't because he's given up that $3, $4, $5 an hour. So we need to right-size our pay in certain categories here. I'm sure you do as well. And then the mission orientation of public service work. Really, that civic-minded kind of altruism is something that is a separator and a differentiator for us in county governments than it is for anyone else. Construction companies, even nonprofits, accounting firms, anyone else in the mix of a large-scale employer doesn't have the mission, the value proposition, the community service element, the working for your neighbors, the working with your neighbors, doing the people's work that you and county government have. So we have to maximize our differentiators. And number 3 is our biggest single differentiator. So I'm going to talk about that a couple different times when I close out. And then number 6, if we could advance to the next slide, it kind of bleeds into a specific set of statements here. And you could just go through those, Jeanette. Basically, when I've done the research on county managers, which I think aligns with other, could you just go back? I think it also aligns with other departmental positions at the county managerial level. And that is that counties should think too of the role they play in improving the quality of life and the kind of the demographic situation in your own county and all the work that you do, whether it be housing, poverty, cultural improvements, parks and recreation, offerings, events, festivals, Main Street efforts, economic development, community development, you name it. You should be thinking at times outside of the organizational walls. So inside the organizational walls is your pay and your benefits and your compensation and your employee organizational culture. Outside of the walls is what's the resulting work product of all of these people that we're trying to employ and retain and keep and hire. Well, it's the work they do in the community. So every chance we get, and we really don't do it enough as county governments, and I speak for myself as well in Livingston County, of talking about the impacts we have, the positive impacts we have every single day in the lives of an individual. The driving on a county road, the service from the 911 center, the mental health offerings for those that are in the business, the nursing home offerings for those that are in the business, the public health, social services, public welfare. All of those things that we offer people, we need to talk about because that's the value impact of the work, and those are the employees doing that work. So I think it's a good sales opportunity, if you will, a good messaging and marketing opportunity that maybe we don't tap into enough. So here's how we can operationalize all of this stuff, which is basically these are strategies that you can employ for purposes of recruitment and retention in relation to the broader issue that we're dealing with in the Great Resignation. So the first would be reviewing compensation. When was the last time, again, you've reviewed it from soup to nuts, top to bottom, all union contracts, all managerial pay, rates, department head salary schedule, whatever you want to call it. I'm not necessarily pushing for a particular vendor, but I know many of us have used a vendor or two across the state to do a full-scale compensation analysis and a market, rate analysis to see where we are. And it was really good information for us to see where we were sort of against the market, against peer counties, against what for me is the Finger Lakes, Rochester region, because that's who the competition is. We're not always going to be at the max. We don't want to be at the minimum. So where are we in relation to what that rate of pay is for that particular position? We talk about interviews. So you have really there's kind of 3 different interviews. There's entrance interviews. You hire somebody and tell them about the job and tell them the individual about what the expectations are, the hours, but also maybe the culture and the strategic plan and what's going on and what are the hot button issues. And then we have exit interviews, which are oftentimes done on a resignation, on a retirement, and hey, look, what worked well for you here? Any parting thoughts? And that middle piece of the interview process is rarely employed with the regularity that it's employed on the way out and the way in, which is within employment, the stay interview. So conducting a formal stay interview. So why do you choose to stay in your position? What makes a great day? What makes a bad day? Do you have growth opportunities? What would make you the dicey question? What would make you leave employment here in Livingston County, in my county? Asking those questions of your personnel, both younger, older, and everybody in between, will garner you some key statistics, data points, facts. Yeah, are you going to get some complaints and some whining? Yeah, but you're going to get some maybe recognition of what you're doing, maybe some pivot points where you can do a few things differently. It's been very impactful in a positive way for us, and we've been doing those on a broad basis from my perch and also the department head perch for a couple of years now, and it works out really good. Onboarding improvements would be when someone gets hired, what does that sort of first kind of onboarding look like? Is it an introduction to the culture? Is it how they're a part of a team? Or is it a piece of paper and a badge and here's a laptop that might not fire up? I use that example because that's what happened on a recent managerial hire for us, and it was an embarrassment. So what does that onboarding look like? I mean, is it a welcome card? Is it a thanks for hopping on board with us and being part of our team? We're really glad you're here. Thank you, signed executive administrator, signed department head. The pre-employee experience. So that's like the applicant. How easy is it, or how difficult is it for that employee, prospective employee, so the applicant, to apply for a position in your county? Is it an old school PDF handwritten form only that they have to send in on snail mail? Is your response back to an applicant snail mail, email? Is it responsive? Is it timely? Is it on point? If they don't get the job, how are they kind of quote unquote let down? If they do get the job, how do they quote unquote find out about that? Those sort of pre-employee experiences are important. I talked about culture. Really, that is like leadership. That is a camaraderie. That is a teamwork. How people work together. And that's really not something you kind of just turn off or turn on or fix overnight. It's really kind of embedding yourself in the inner workings of your county government at the department or the broader level, and seeing how you rate or stack up as it relates to a positive, proactive, progressive, not in the the liberal political sense, but progressive in the kind of forward-thinking, innovative sense. Targeted investments in technology kind of go together. Again, if I'm an employee and I come in and I have kind of crappy technology and a desk that's not nice and a dusty work environment, think about those little tiny things. On the recruitment front, recruitment ads, I mean, how are you messaging and how are you marketing your opportunities? Is it just the traditional post and pray, post a position and hope people will apply? Are you doing any targeted, specific recruitment for individuals across different titles? On your job description front, how many people, and I'm raising my hand over here in Geneseo and Livingston County, have job descriptions that have things that are just archaic government speak gobbledygook in the job description. the distinguishing features of the class, and all these, old school terms for the job responsibilities. People, applicants, would-be employees of yours and mine, don't really have time, and it's a good time to be a free agent for them. So if there's any little or big or in between impediment to their prospective candidacy to apply for a position, you want to eliminate it or mitigate it. And that's just one small thing. And I guess that's a launching off point for me to just briefly say that all of these things are small little things. There's no silver bullet kind of broad brush stroke of an effort that's going to turn the corner for you or me on issues related to workforce recruitment and retention. But a series of things like this, and there's 20 or 25 here when we talk about strategies, will be kind of mini milestones for you and your organization and me and mine to work on, that might garner you 5 applicants and 2 employees, might garner you 10 applicants and 4 or 5 civil service exam participants more than you had last time. That's your goal, that kind of incremental progress. We use the analogy here, we use one of two. We say eating an elephant, one bite at a time, right? And the second thing is that ship that got stuck in the canal a year and a half or a year ago, right? Just feeling like that's stuck, you're not gonna just move it and push it and be on your way in a matter of minutes. It's gonna take a little while. It got there like that, but it's gonna take a little while to kind of get unstuck and charted and pathed in the right direction. So updating job descriptions and recruitment ads, that's a big deal. Coaching and mentoring internally to your organization. So do you have prospective kind of middle managers or below that would be great candidates moving forward? What are you doing to get them in the pipeline? I know, Madison County was a big proponent of the NACO Leadership Development Program. We weren't in on it yet. They raved about it. We started participating in it. It's been a smashing success for the folks that have participated in Livingston County. They can't recommend it enough. There's a few local to the Rochester region leadership development programs. So identifying, they may not come to you. So what are your managers or what are you yourself as a leader doing internal to your organization to pre-identify, pre-select the folks who are your next generation leaders before you lose them, perhaps, to say like, look, in another 5 years or plus, I may have a social service deputy commissioner vacancy. This senior caseworker is really good as far as potential, and they're a great worker. And I'm going to get them trained through some mentoring and some coaching opportunities. DEI efforts. If I look around my county, demographically, we're a very, middle-aged, white, female-dominated workforce. And there's different things that we all can do as county governments to improve the situation as it relates to how diverse of a workforce. Are we representative of the county that we serve? Yes or no? Are we representative, socioeconomically of the county that we serve? Yes or no? So I think some targeted investments in that area would be a good idea. Pre-employment programs would be things like, how are you getting to the K-12 environment? Can you do training programs for people that aren't yet employed for you as sort of a pipeline type effort? Remote work, we all know what that is. We pivoted towards that in great levels during COVID, but some of us reverted back. Some of us really never went there full bore. But what does your remote work plan look like? I think you have to get there. I think the difficulty is, as I said before, not every position lends itself to the possibility of remote work, but the ones that do, does that work for your organization? It's going to be a county by county choice and decision. And finally, work-life balance and wellness efforts. I think this is a big deal. This is something that's kind of a personal crusade for me. I teach and talk about this a lot. I teach and talk about mindfulness, something I call resilience and emotional fitness. So we talk a lot about wellness at work. We talk a lot about physical wellness, healthcare, screenings and blood pressure monitorings and efforts like that, and incentives around that even. Lost in the shuffle, but definitely increasing as an effort, is the mental health of our employees. It was a big deal to get through what many of us got through when we had COVID, because the frontline workforce was the county workforce. When you talk about public health, mental health, the county executives, the county administrators, everybody kind of on the quote unquote front lines, emergency medical services, sheriff's road patrol, the jail. We were kind of in this Wild West frontier for a stretch of time, and we just pivoted and we just got the work done. But there was some residual for that for some people. Post the Great Resignation, there was a lot of home life situations that changed. People changed jobs, people were remote. Children in their schooling environments were challenged significantly by the at-home and not in-person schooling education. So how did that impact your employees who were parents of those school-age children? So a lot of that stuff needs to be kind of those wraparounds for you to support at the organizational level in any way that you can. And yes, some of that stuff costs money, but it's better than the alternative of money lost by recruitment challenges that get worse and worse because you don't support holistically the employees that you have in your employ. Next slide, please, Jeanette. So a few more strategies to cap off. And again, you could just go through these, is fine. So one of the things that we've been doing, job fairs are regularly conducted in this county, probably in your county as well. Job fairs in this county, job fairs in this county are done by the Workforce Development Office, kind of the Regional Workforce Investment Board, or both. So oftentimes we have a spot or a place or a table or a booth at a large job fair that's countywide. So like Barilla would be there, Kraft Foods, Sweeteners Plus, the prison system, SUNY, ourselves, school districts, you name it. We've done a few of these specific to our nursing home that have worked out pretty well, where we did some on-the-spot hiring events. Now, again, it's subject to verification of credentials if individuals need to be credentialed, and it's also subject to a background check. But we basically say if you come and you pass muster with respect to meeting the job specifications of the position, and this was at the nursing home, you will be hired, quote unquote, on the spot and given an opportunity and given a, here's your schedule for in 2 weeks ahead or a month ahead. Now, you can't do that for every position, I understand. Sometimes there's post-hire training that needs to happen, but just maybe doing some county job fair stuff related to that would be speaking to your Rotary clubs, speaking to your service clubs, speaking to church groups, and just being a program. So like all those service clubs have a quote unquote program and a monthly program. You can be the monthly program. The county government, the department head, the county manager, county administrator can be the monthly program and come and talk about how you're an employer of choice these days. You've transformed the proposition that you have with employees as far as compensation and benefits, the work experience. You have vacancies in the following areas that really runs the gamut between social and public welfare and social services, to accounting and finance, to clerical and administrative support, to legal work, to public safety, to healthcare, and you name it, you basically got it. That's an opportunity as well. Internal training programs might be, years ago, I know Ontario County had like Leadership Ontario or Leadership, you name the county, where they had kind of a dedicated programmatic endeavor that was a continuing education for their own team. Sometimes local chambers of commerce or United Way or other workforce entities run programs like that you can kind of tap into. But again, the internal to the workforce, your existing people are your best assets. They can be your marketers, they can be your spokespeople for saying how great it is, but you need to make it great. But they can be your best spokespeople for telling people that there's opportunities here to work in a great organization. Engagement with the high schools, with BOCES. So I do a program called County Government 101. So I speak to sophomores, juniors, and seniors at one of the 9 school districts on a fairly regular basis to talk about what county government does. So kind of, true cradle to grave operation, soup to nuts, the largest, most robust, type of service provision that exists, frankly, in the United States of America. County government has the diversity, the breadth, and the scope of service provision, unlike any other local government entity has in the US, let alone New York. So you talk about all those opportunities for kids, and you talk about the pathways that are available. And when we talk about engagement with high schools, BOCES, one thing I didn't put as another comma is colleges. I talked about this at the NISAC conference in Buffalo with County Executive Adam Bello in Monroe County, and they had a stat that said that they lead the state or the area or the region in the amount of inflow folks who come to college or university in Monroe County that stay. They were the least of any other major metro survey. So meaning they have people come for 2 or 4 years and go, and when they go, they are going at higher amounts than any other region or county around. So again, it's that opportunity for those that have colleges, and I know many of us do, certainly at least a community college, but certainly a 4-year college or university, a SUNY or a private. I have Geneseo here. How many kids come from Long Island or out of state or what have you, and just stay here 4 years, love the experience, love the village, love the setting, and then go home? Is there an opportunity to engage a little bit more? Because we have a lot of Geneseo out of state, out of area transplants who didn't leave, who stayed, who now work for me. How do I capitalize on that moving forward? There's the quickening of the hiring process from start to finish. We're not the best at this in Livingston County. I'm not sure if you are in your county, but if someone applies for a job, how quick is that turnaround? What's the notification system look like? Are they made aware of future opportunities if they don't get the job? But again, is that process relatively quick? I'll get to the middle one in a second. Public engagement at resident forums. I talked a little bit about that when I talk about the service clubs and the church and the religious organizations and speaking to those senior clubs, but just getting the public engagement out. So your press messaging, your citizen engagement, your town halls, even your ads in your paper, your op-eds, whatever they are, talking about the value you bring to the county, talking about the work that you do, and talking about that the work that you do is done by people, right? I mean, these are your neighbors, these are your fellow resident, your friends and your family, but they're serving the community by doing the work that they do. They're doing the people's work, they're public servants. That's a great opportunity. Non-traditional candidates and non-traditional paths. One thing that people get hung up on sometimes is formal recognition and appreciation events, and we regularly have some chatter on the listservs, and this is a national thing too, not just New York State and the county administrators or the county managers, which is, well, can I really have funds for this? And can we really fund something like this? And can we really say an attaboy and attagirl to our staff with a formal recognition ceremony and give them a plaque or whatever? And I say, by all means, yes. And I say that county governments can do that. They should do that. They should have a small and large scale and everything in between appreciation events. And it doesn't need to be a costly endeavor. Your department heads with simple thank you notes to staff on the job well done. Your administrative staff, your county administrator, manager, executive, publicly lauding folks who go the extra mile, who respond to a scene and fix the situation, who has a caseworker who did a great thing for a child. Adoption Awareness Month. How many adoptions did your DSS facilitate for folks who didn't literally have kind of a home environment, a mother, father? How did you assist them? How did you facilitate that? Did you then go do a press release on that to sort of laud the efforts, but also introduce other folks to that? And by doing that, you're again marketing yourself as an organization. You're not just saying the service is the service. You're saying someone's doing that service, or you should be saying that someone's doing that service, and they're a really valuable member of the workforce. And you know what, folks in the community, we need more valuable members of the workforce like Shannon, who did that fantastic job, like James, who responded to that 911 call in a state of emergency. And then you kind of push that out there to the public to tell them, here's what you get. And this goes to the middle one. That's your value proposition. Here's what you get. Counties matter. The work that you do matters. The jail supervisor that tells his employees that, when he worked construction, the good work that they did might get that construction company president a better car or a bigger boat. The good work that you do in county government protects your neighbors, right? Gives them benefits that they didn't otherwise have before, fixes their maybe crappy situation, gets them benefits so they can kind of move on with their life. You name it, right? That doesn't exist in other areas of service, or other areas of employment. So hammering home that value proposition is critical. And then I think we have one more slide, Jeanette. So final thoughts, value propositions are extremely important. What is yours? What do you say to a prospective employee that working for, Sullivan County, Oswego County, Ontario County, Suffolk County, what are you telling them that the value proposition is for their work in that county? Because yes, compensation is important, and yes, benefits are important. But if you look at those, why people stay and why they go, it's not the end all be all. You can't overlook it. You have to address it, but then you have to also address the other wraparounds, organization-wide, overarching stuff as well. Benefit alignment, aligning your benefits to where they need to be. For example, we were looking at this in Livingston County because we had gotten to a point, and I was the one that did it with the unions and all those union collective bargaining agreement conversations and debates at the table to, healthcare and wages. Well, what does healthcare mean? It usually means controlling the cost. And for us, it meant asking for more and more and more additional contributions. And for the union, what it meant was to get a settlement, I'm going to push it down the ranks. So the newbies are going to have the higher rate of pay, the 15%, the 20%, the 25%. Well, we got too high and we got non-competitive as it relates to that. But also you're hiring a 20-year, so you're hiring for a commissioner of social services because you're one retired and you want a seasoned professional for that. Are they going to have more than a week of vacation when they get hired because your policies haven't been adjusted to account for the fact that you're going to have a seasoned pro take that job? Those are some of the little kind of nuanced things you need to think about. Tell your story and start young. So get into the schools, talk to them about careers, tell your story to the public. I've said that many, many times. I'm kind of an evangelist as it relates to that. You can probably tell I'm a secular evangelist, of course, but I'm very keen on counties doing more, myself included in my county, to inform people that the work that you do is great work. It's super meaningful. It's super impactful, and tell people what you're doing every single day, because that'll be an attraction, point. Invest and train. We hired a training and professional development coordinator, established a position, established a department, gave them a budget, reporting directly to me as county administrator for the first time in our organization's history. We had departmental ones at times in DSS and public health and sheriffs, but now we have a county-wide one because we're investing in investments in our workforce. Pay, we talked about a couple different times, but definitely, being unafraid to right-size pay, because we all know what happens then. You get the coffee clubs. We have one in the town of York, and there's a sign over it. It's called the Table of Knowledge, right? So a bunch of guys sit there, farmers and non-farmers, and kibitz about all things Livingston County government or town government in that town. And oh, well, I pay your salary, or I can't believe they're giving a 5% increase, 7% increase, 10% increase. I can't believe they're adding this benefit. I can't believe they're adding that position. You need to kind of sift through all that stuff and say what's right for this organization. That's, in my case, I have a $170 million organization with 1,200 full and part-time employees combined. What's the best thing for this organization, irrespective of where my funding source comes from? Of course, I have to acknowledge it. I have to be aware of it, but you also have to do the right thing as a competitiveness standpoint to make yourself stand out in a very hyper-competitive labor market. I talked about support and mental health. That's a big deal for me and the folks that I work with. We have a mental health department, but certainly doing more wellness offerings, webinars, employee sessions, lunch and learns, and making that a focus for our people. Career paths, and certainly having the right people in the right positions. But career paths, just let me finish on that. The people that maybe in yesteryear would get hired as a clerk typist in the planning department and wish and desire to stay as a clerk typist in the planning department for 35 years and retire, those days are kind of over. And the days now are the people who get hired that they want additional opportunities, they want advancement opportunities. And again, if they feel a little maybe entitled and needy in that regard, yeah, sometimes that's a negative, and sometimes you need to kind of address that. But if it's well-intentioned and it's genuine, and they really want to grow and grow with you, what are you doing as far as outlets and paths for them to be able to do that so you don't lose them? Just something for all of us to consider. And that is my presentation. I'm happy to partake in the Q&A that I believe Steve will lead at this point in time. So thank you.
Ian, thank you. Thank you very much for a thoughtful presentation. We have asked folks, if you want to submit a question, now is your time to do that. We could help each other. No question is a bad question. It's an opportunity to help each other around the state. Your questions are good questions and everyone will benefit. There are a couple in the queue here that I'll just fire off real quickly. Can we get these slides? Absolutely. Jeanette will be posting these slides on the NISAC website by the end of the day. A question about the name of the leadership program that was used in Madison County, Ian?
Yeah, so it's if you go on NACO.org, I believe it's the High Performance Leadership Academy or something of that nature. That is the
Yep, that's right.
NACO program that obviously NISAC has supported as well from an organization to an organization standpoint. And Madison, Livingston, I know many others participate across the state and across the nation. Really, it's a great program. My managers and leaders and would-be leaders have all raved about it.
Most of the staff of the New York Association has also gone through that leadership program. They are graduating this week, in addition to myself having gone through that. So thank you for flagging that, Ian. A couple of other questions. Again, folks, if you have a time, now would be the time. We've got about 7 minutes left in this hour that we have together. Fire off a question. Maybe you could submit a question on what's working in your community, in your county, or in a local government that you might be familiar with. What's working? If you send that into the question, Mark, I'll read that out to the group. One of the questions that's come in about thoughts on refreshing recruiting techniques. Ian, can you speak to ways that you can give or thoughts that you might have on how a county or a local government can refresh their way that they recruit?
Yeah, so I think a couple different things. When we talk about recruiting, we're talking about an opening that exists in our organization and how we need to find someone for it. So the first thing is sort of the preface to that, which is, if you can see it coming and you can develop and groom and train from within future leaders, that's probably your best route, because the people already are bought into it. They are valuable members of your organization. Can you kind of do a little bit better? And I'm talking about myself too. Can we do a little bit better in training and developing professionally those would-be leaders for when we have vacancies? But then when you have a vacancy, kind of a refreshed look might be, where are you targeting the application? Is it in the right spots? When you hire someone for a spot similar to that, how can you find out data points as far as how they found out about the position? When before you recruit, can you do a refresh to the job description? Is it up to date? Again, looking at the process for applying. How do they apply? What does that process look like? Targeted outreach to associations affiliated with that position. So is it a criminal justice position? Are you going to those kind of affiliates and associations directly? At times, it's going to be a source and not just a search, meaning you're going to have to literally source out talent, find talent. Oftentimes we have found people, my most recent managerial hire here was not actively an applicant for our position. We sought her out and we said, we would like you to express interest. We think you would be on paper a great fit. Can we talk further? And that actually led to our top 3 applicants for this particular position, and it led to the hire of one of those people. So sometimes you got to source. As I joked around, the post and pray is really done. So getting it to all the various sources, whether that be NISAC, listservs, professional associations, peers, non-traditional outlets, trying to find non-traditional candidates, things of that nature.
Question, another question has come in. We've got a few more in the queue here. Again, folks, if you have questions, please submit them now. Buy-in from legislators. The question is surrounding that. First of all, Ian, what are your thoughts about the boards, our boards of supervisors, our county legislatures, our county executives, sheriffs, as they are a co-employer? And so do the elected officials, the boards who approve budgets, do they understand and appreciate the employment marketplace right now, number one? And number two, how do we get their buy-in on some of the things that you're going over and further educate them?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one that's a challenge that we all face, regardless if it's a board of supervisors. I work for a board of supervisors, so I have 17 bosses. I joke around, I got one at home, so I have 18 total. If you're a county legislature, you've got your legislators. You know, that form of government, regardless of what it is and how it's set up, has elected officials who may not have the buy-in and who may have the buy-in to what you're trying to do, maybe organizational or administratively. So again, you're not going to bat 1,000 probably. I can tell you right now, I have a managerial salary schedule that's been in front of my board of supervisors that purports to offer, you know, sizable compensation increases based on the market analysis that we did, that I'm not sure I'm going to get the universal buy-in that I would really like. So we're going to have conversations around that. But I guess it's on data, it's on stats, it's on positions, meaning positioning and messaging, and explaining the demands, explaining the challenges. I did an attrition rate analysis for the 4 largest departments, and it showed that we had attrition rates that were larger than they need to be in areas like the sheriff's, DSS, health, and highway. So when we talk about, well, we need to raise the rates of the CSEA labor union from, you know, X to X plus, here's my explanation why. Because we posted that position in 17 different ways and we didn't get a requisite pool of applicants to pick from. So again, though, you're not always going to you know, get 100% success there, but I think data helps, facts help, anecdotes help as well. Departmental stories. When you're dealing with the sheriff, like I do, I have a good relationship with my sheriff, and as that co-employer, we talk about that. I mean, and he may want to be at a certain point even further than we want to be in certain circumstances, and we tell him, look, we can get 3/4 of that, but here's why. Because I've got the Apple Card issues, I've got CSEA over here, I got NISNA over here, I got my non-union over here, and here's why I can only do XYZ for the road patrol or for the corrections union, and vice versa. Sometimes I got to do that in the opposite way and say, here, look, I have to do this for the sheriff's office folks because I have to compete, and I can't do that, or I can't do that at the level I would like to with you. So it's an education point, but we all face the same challenges. I think at the end of the day, we have to recognize and appreciate that they're the elected officials. I work for them. They're the policy makers. I'm the administrator, and we have to kind of, you know, have that dynamic and interplay work together to be successful.
I got a quick comment and then another question. We'll get through this real quickly. Genesee reporting in that they've instituted an employee spotlight recognition effort, which has been extremely successful and well received by the employees, wherein the department head will nominate a staff member that's going over and above the call of duty. And every couple of months, the manager will select these people, does a social media posting about the employees, and gives them recognition and a certificate in front of their colleagues at the department. Something started last year, just after the pandemic, and is going extremely well. Thank you very much, Matt, for sending that in. Just a couple of questions, sort of a twofer here. Union issues with flexible flexible work and remote work is the first side of that, and the other side of that is bonuses being given to new employees and causing some resentment with existing employees. Can you comment on those, Ian?
Yeah, so I think the second one I'll tackle, you know, bonuses. You know, remote work I'll get to in a minute, but bonuses, I mean, certainly it's, you know, we've seen it across different county governments. We had the healthcare worker bonus at the state level that all of us can tap into, if you will, with the state paying for it, and we can participate in that. And I know we are, and everybody is, hopefully. At the local level, certainly we've seen that done. We haven't gotten too far into that here in Livingston County, but it, I guess, has worked for other places, meaning they've done it, they've carried it out. Sometimes it's a recruitment bonus, sometimes it's a retention bonus, sometimes it's a longevity incentive for folks that have been there. I think when it's constructed, it's best constructed to recognize the existing workforce as well, because that's where you get a lot of pushback where, you know, hey, you know, you're going to recruit, you know, Janie or Johnny and offer them $3,000, but where's my recognition for being here 15 years and a stalwart for you and your county government? So you just have to kind of navigate through some of those challenges. Remote work, as far as, you know, unions go, I mean, certainly, you know, managerial rights should dictate your ability to set up an environment that is remote work if you have technology to be able to do it, if you have the wherewithal to do it, if you have the department head buy-in to do it. We've done it sort of on a department by department kind of pilot basis. We of course had to do a lot of it in COVID. And not that we're really out of COVID, but kind of post major COVID, we really reverted back almost entirely back into the office. And you're going to have the equity issues of folks that can't do it. So the EMTs, the ALS techs, the COs, the field folks, and people like the DMV workers perhaps, and the clerk workers, and the people that need to be in person. And again, it's a balancing act. It's kind of moderation. It's being able to work with your unions and then open conversation about, here's why. If it leads to recruitment efforts that get improved, you could obviously point to that. If it leads to recruitment challenges, you can point to it not being a good answer to your problem. So it may just be something you need to walk before you run with.
Quick comment and then one final question. And unfortunately, it looks like we can go on for hours here, but we'll try to stay within this general 1 hour time frame here. I want to thank Supervisor Hughes in Essex County, put forward an interesting and novel, as far as I know, a recruiting technique, and that is the county is encouraging current employees to recommend an individual, sort of a referral program for the county in a particular department, in a public health department. If Nancy is working in the public health department as a public health nurse, and she's able to recruit or successfully bring in someone, there's a small stipend or a one-time referral payment that's given to that employee who is successful in bringing in an employee. So thank you, Supervisor, for sending that in. Very interesting. This PowerPoint will be shared. Jeanette will post the PowerPoint. Jeanette will post the slides as well on the NYSAC website at nysac.org/webinars. That will be posted later today. Ian, let me just conclude with this last question that's in the queue here. And again, I want to thank everybody for staying with us, is job burnout. Your thoughts about how to best get not ahead of job burnout, because we're all burned out by this point, post-pandemic, but your thoughts on addressing job burnout will be the last question here, to keep those that are with us and lead towards an improved workplace for those that we're recruiting.
Yeah, so I think it definitely exists, job burnout. We're experiencing across a lot of our different departments. I think how we address it is multifaceted. I think it's conversations with the employee base, the unions, the specific employees who might be sort of exhibiting signs to say, you got to get to the why, or how is it sort of coming up? Is it based on citizen interactions? Is it based on work volume? Is it based on supervisory support or lack thereof? Is it based on training that's not there? Is it based on the work itself just being, grittier work than it used to be? Like I think of, child support and child welfare investigations, just that stuff that you have to see. Are you being burned out kind of mentally from the struggles of that? So conversations I think need to happen there. And then I think that's where you get into some of this mental health and wellness. So are you offering wellness? Are you offering an EAP type service, employee assistance program? Are you out there letting people know that they should take their personal time? Is a vacation a personal time, or even a legitimate sick time kind of frowned upon, or people look down upon that? They should be able to use it, obviously not abuse it. They should be able to use it. Is there an emphasis in the organization at the county level, starting from the top, all the leaders, executive, administrator, board on down, that they support resilience efforts, that they support people's emotional well-being, that they are mental health is not something that is not supported, that is indeed supported. So those are the things that you can kind of assist with as far as burnout. And then it maybe getting into the granular nitty-gritty level of, like, what are they doing every single day? Is that job performance metric changed a little bit? Is the job specification changed as such? So you need to remove some obligations or responsibilities from that person. Is it sort of just work driven and the amount of labor driven? So there's always different factors there, but I think one thing you can do regardless of what the factors are is have a focus for your employee base on their own mental health, on their emotional resilience, on wellness type supports. Empathy is a #1 leadership skill in the Harvard Business Review for 2022 for a reason, because leaders need to be empathetic about what the needs are of their own workforce members, because they need to feel supported holistically, not just financially.
Well, that's also called emotional intelligence on the job, and we all need to continue to use that and practice that and take care of each other. Ian, thank you very much, Ian Coyle, the Livingston County Administrator, and I just can't thank you enough on behalf of all the counties. This will conclude today's webinar. It will be posted on our website later this afternoon. I want to thank all of you for joining us, and a special thank you to Ian Coyle. Thanks so much.